So, this video is going to be a talking video. That's why I've named it I Just Want to Talk, because, just want to talk. Now, this video is my thoughts, or are my thoughts on RTV. Everything about RTV, or some points that I thought of. Maybe there'll be a part 2, maybe, since I don't have that much battery and I don't want to put too much time, I don't know. Each point may have its own video, is what I'm trying to say, but probably won't. I don't know. It determines how long this first part is, and if my phone dies or not. Not really my phone dies, but anyway, it's 11% right now. Let me get on to my what I want to make the first part with my thoughts on RTV, and it's the writing of the show. Now, is it the writing? Hold on. I got a list right here that I'm looking at. Let's see. No. Alright, it's what could have, what is it? What could have been. And I mean the direction they were going. This also ties into the writing of the show, because, the first point I want to make is the writing of the show. The writing of the show is, I feel like they put in, not so much the writing, but I mean, I feel like they got a writer, and, okay, sorry, I was checking my mic works or not, and, it is on, sorry, but I wanted to talk about the writing of the show. The show, not so much the writing of the show, I should say, but the writers of the show, the person who's writing the show. I feel like they changed writers multiple times. And that's why it kind of was a cluster after the synchro arc, because it was going somewhere, and then it was kind of not going somewhere, and then it was going somewhere, and then it kind of wasn't at times, and stuff like that. I don't know where I was on the speech, but I'm assuming I got most of the things covered. I got interrupted, by the way. So the writing of the show, it's apparent that they had a couple writers, at least to me. Mainly, I don't know if I should say apparent, but I've heard that they had different writers and stuff like that. So the direction of the show kind of went in places. It had the option of being like the best Yu-Gi-Oh, but it kind of failed a bit. Well, it kind of did fail. My second point, it ties on to that, is that what could have been, as in the greatness of the show itself, how it could have been better. In my opinion, is if the show's runtime was longer. Like the original Yu-Gi-Oh had about almost 5 years. If the show would have had that, maybe even a 6-year run, I think that would be enough time for them to do everything they wanted, instead of having the show end around 100 plus episodes, so like 100 and what was it? Is it 180? 100, basically the same place as Zeal, which Zeal was 145, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 or Arc V basically ended almost near the same set of episodes. Actually, let me see, I have a folder here. This may take a while for it to load, hopefully not, but let's see. The amount of episodes Arc V had was 148, and the episodes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Zeal had is 146. Now, Zeal did the show. Zeal did it okay, did it perfect, because it was a smaller cast of characters. Not only that, but it was a smaller story, you could say. It didn't have 10,000 plots running at one time. Arc V could have worked if it had the same amount of episodes as the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Had, which is 224 episodes. If Arc V had that amount of time to be of whatever, I think what they were going for could have been accomplished. It also doesn't help that the Yu-Gi-Oh community that play the card game didn't like pendulum monsters. For some reason, they didn't like it, even though pendulum monsters are very easy to be killed. Pendulum monsters are, I don't want to say it, but they're kind of like the worst type of monsters. The power with them is so great, but their weakness is so much. Not only does it die to everything a regular monster would die to, destruction in battle, because it's a monster, but it would also be killed by everything a spell card would be killed to. So if you play a card where it's like, oh, okay, you take 500 damage for playing a spell card, if your opponent were to play a pendulum monster, they would be hit with 500 damage because it counts as playing a spell card. That trap card, where spell and trap card, what spell cards have to be set, it locks out the whole pendulum zones for your opponent, and that's with one card. People usually run things like MST or Twin Twisters. Well, nowadays it's Twin Twisters. Even Wavering Eyes destroy pendulum monsters and get effects off it. Basically, as long as you had some way to destroy your opponent's spell cards. So like MST, right? Run 3 MSTs, that's 3 pendulum monsters down. And mind you, they would have to basically run out of fuel. So as long as you keep destroying their pendulum monsters, yeah, sure, you give them access to more pendulum monsters, but at the same time, they have to keep putting down the pendulum things. That whole fragrance, excuse me, fragrance, trap card. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Spell Fragrance. It looks like a pot, like a pod of greed type of card. That card basically says both players must set spell cards before using them. Just having 3 of those locks out your opponent from the whole pendulum mechanic. So is it pendulum shits? Is the whole pendulum mechanic thing cards, are they just one big block of shit? I say yes, but not in a negative way, because everything has its downfalls. Synchros have their downfalls, like Seas have their downfalls, Fusion have their downfalls. Everything in the game has its downfalls and ups and all that. It's just that those are the pendulum monsters' downfalls. Yeah, sure, you can summon a whole bunch, but your opponent's probably going to destroy your pendulum zones or not even let you play them. Not your pendulum zones, but your pendulum monsters. But for some reason, people didn't like it, which is okay, whatever, or not whatever, since it's the new thing they're trying to push. So it would make sense for the company to just be like, well, no one really liked it, so let's just kill it and let's move on to something different. So not only is it the company's fault now, but it's also the people who play the game's fault. Because I would imagine the show would probably run, well, I don't know, maybe after the first one they shift for this whole 4 years a Yu-Gi-Oh show would run or something like that. Because I don't know, maybe in an alternate universe or something, the show did run longer, like it did with DM, and they actually fixed all the plot holes and everything about it. Basically what I'm trying to say is that it was a good 10 out of 10 perfect Yu-Gi-Oh show that everyone wanted it to be. So basically a longer show, basically. I do kind of blame the meta players and the people who play the card game, since that's what Konami made the show for, to try to sell the cards with and with stuff like that. I say, if you're a fan of the anime, also blame some of the people who do play the card games and who are against Pendulum, because I feel like they were kind of the cause of this, the whole rants about Pendulum and how the game and all this and whatever. I say blame them a little bit, Of course, all this has already been done. It's nothing that we can prevent unless we change the past. Point 3 here is let's see. Point 3 is a bit of the show from, I don't know, from a whole different standpoint. Because after watching everything about it, I I see where they were going, and I see where they could have went. But this is how I feel like they not should have, but as an option. I want this video to be about discussion, so I would like to hear people's opinion about this point. I think this point, show must go on. This is my third point, but my point is show must go on, and more about entertainment. The main protagonist, Yuya, he's a entertainment duelist. I've seen things where it's like, oh, the saying, beauty is pain, right? There's a whole dark side to the whole, Hollywood industry, I guess you could say. They could have went with that route, I guess. I don't know. Not like a whole like conspiracy type of route thing, but more of Yuya's an actor, right? Not actor. He's an entertainer, right? He wants to be like his father, or he want like. All right, I want the show to. I wanted the show. The show could have focused more on the entertainment aspect, I guess you could say, since that's what it seems like. I thought they were going to do that. Yuya. So let's see. We got Yuya here, and he wants to be an entertainer, duelist like his dad, or he's following the footsteps of his dad, but also trying to find who he is as a person, okay, as a duelist. Not only does he duel, but he entertains while dueling. They could have had this whole thing where how do I say it? Like, I guess the darker side of showbiz is that. Oh shit! Almost turned off my lights in my room. Let me push that back. Anyway, I'll fix that later. But they could have went down that route, the whole route of I guess Yuya struggling within, right? This doesn't have anything to do with Zark. It's just Yuya and his character by himself. No Zark. They could have put the whole Zark thing in, but later. This also ties into a longer show. But they didn't do that, obviously. They could have had a plot maybe with Yuzu also being an entertainment duelist, but later on she goes, like, maybe she turns out to be a singer, or before she decides on a clear path, why she's doing entertainment duelist. Why she's doing entertainment dueling. She quits that for a bit, and my screen went dark. Let's see. All right. While she's doing that, she stops dueling basically, and she starts singing. Right? She's doing some vocal stuff. Because her cards are about singing stuff, about music. Maybe she doesn't sing. Maybe she just composes some songs or whatever. And then maybe later on she comes back and she starts doing it again, or something like that. They could have done something like that. But I feel like the show could have been about Yuya trying to not only let's say people want him to follow his dad's footsteps, but he wants to be his own person while doing that. All right, see, that makes sense. So not only does he want to be his own person, but he's also trying to follow his dad at the same time. It could have, the whole first season could have been about that. Actually, they could have just cut this up into different seasons, right? The first season could be what I'm talking about here, about entertainment and all that stuff, and then near the ending of the season, the first season, it could have been about Yuya finds himself, kinda, almost, and then afterwards, it could have. The whole second season could have been about the synchro dimension. He goes to the synchro dimension, he starts entertaining there, and near the ending of that, they hop to the XC dimension, and then that's where Yuya really has to step up his entertainment dueling, because everyone's there with a broken heart, and it's just really chaotic there, because everything's destroyed. So he would have to entertain even harder with XC summoning, showing the people that XC summon can bring smiles and all that stuff. And then last season, or I guess not the last season, but the next season would be all about the fusion arc. Yuya turns everyone not happy, but he starts shifting their ideals of the professor or whatever against him, and then soon, nearing the ending of that, he beats the professor or whatever, and then he brings smiles, right? But then I feel like they should have another season after that about the whole Zark plot, but it was the fusion and the Zark plot kind of bleeds into each other. Like, even though he's bringing smiles, I don't know. This could go way more into detail, but I'm just basically leaving a skeleton here. A skeleton where thoughts and ideas could become its flesh, or maybe someone could make this into one big fan fiction. I don't know. But this is just my ideas, my thoughts about that stuff. So the show more about entertainment. Yuzu could be a little bit of a side plot, where she also wants to be an entertainment duelist. Or I guess they could both be entertainment duelists. Bring in some tag duels. This whole idea, you would just have to place characters a bit differently. Dennis would, I guess, he could still be a academy or academia or whatever you want to call it, spy, but he would be showing off his whole much more entertainment stuff. But besides that, I think that's about it when it comes to that part. My 4th, 5th, and 6th part all kind of tie together. Since I'm on 3, I named this 4. I named this 6, but this was more of when I was thinking them up. So this is actually my 4th. My 4th point here is the use of Yuya's monsters. Throughout the whole entire Yu-Gi-Oh series, cards got more archetypal. Archetype? Is it archetypal? Got much more about archetypes. I have a book here. Let me bring it out so I can refresh my memory and stuff. Here we go. Now, of course, this is audio only, and this whole entire video has been visually, at least, has been gameplay. But this part is from IO, and that joke failed. Anyway, this part has been for my eyes only. I don't know if I said that right. For my eyes only. Now, let's see. I guess I could bring out this monster, even though it's not a card I was thinking about. But alright, so we got that. I don't know. I guess we got this, dude. Alright, so that's there. I guess we could bring out this dude because it makes sense for the topic at hand. Now, I don't really. Okay, wait, no, hold on. I know it's easier way. This is, I got the card right here, but I want to look at you. Alright, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, missing one more. Alright, here we go. So, I guess, I don't know if I should or I shouldn't use. I'll use beautiful interest for this one. And you. Alright, I'm gonna have to put these cards back. Alright. Okay, so in the beginning of Duel Monsters, or not Duel Monsters, but Yu-Gi-Oh!, we had Yugi and his Dark Magician, which was a normal monster. And then we had Jaden. He had a fusion monster. We had Yusei. He had a synchro monsters, or tuners. Then we had Zeal. And then we have Arc V. And then, okay, we'll put that ritual monster right there. Alright, so throughout the years, like the beginning of whole entire Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a vanilla monster, right? A normal monster. It has nothing, you play it and that's it, right? that kind of explains a bit of the first series of Yu-Gi-Oh! The whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters series. The fusion monsters, in the GX era, there's a bit more combos to it, but still kind of the same. But there's effects and all this stuff became much more rampant, and all right. So the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Yugi or Tim or the Pharaoh, whatever you want to call him. He had Dark Magician. Dark Magician didn't have its own archetype. It was just a single monster in a deck of cards that were kind of connecting, but not really. That was the earliest form of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? Jaden had his whole... Jaden was the first protagonist to actually incorporate an archetype. One single archetype and then some bonus cards in there to help the archetype out. That archetype was not fast at all compared to today's standards, but it got the job done, and he was able to do stuff with it. The next set of cards is the Synchro archetype, or not is it, but Yusei. Yusei had his deck was basically both of the past two protagonists types of decks. Not only was it a cluster of cards like Yugi's, where his main card Stardust Dragon wasn't even an archetype. It had some cards supporting it, but nothing to call it an archetype like the heroes. But he also had other archetypes working in conjunction with each other to help his synchro. Same thing with fusion. Now, what is that? This part is the use of Yu-Gi-Oh's monsters. Now we get into the pendulum, right? We get into the XC and Yu-Gi-Oh's deck, not Yu-Gi-Oh! Yuma's deck is like Yusei's deck. It's a cluster of monsters that all work towards getting out Hope, and he has a bunch of cards supporting that one monster, Hope. Well, in Yusei's case, Yusei had a cluster of different archetypes or different monsters to help him summon out his Stardust and other synchro monsters. So it wasn't just Stardust. He had different monsters that were, let's see. He had monsters like Gravity Warrior, Sacred Warrior. Those are manga cards he used, by the way. But he did have Armory Arm. He had Drill Warrior, Turbo Warrior, Junk Archer, Road Warrior, Junk Destroyer, Nitro Warrior, as his other monsters besides Stardust. So let's see. Yugi's case, he couldn't have a whole deck with Dark Magician, only cards supporting Dark Magician. So it's like getting a whole bunch of cards to support a light attributed monster, and the light attribute monster is like a level 5 monster, and that's kind of how your deck goes. They'll support that one monster. But at the same time, they're also supporting other monsters, because Yugi never did rely on just singly his Dark Magician. He relied on other monsters, but it was still, I guess you could call it a clusterfuck. A cluster of all these random little different monsters trying to aid Dark Magician. And, of course, same thing with the small trap cards. They were also random, you could say. At least to today's standards, people say that's random mess of cards. With Jaden's deck, it had an archetype, and then Jaden added a couple of monsters to blend the combos a little bit more to help it out. And, 10 out of 10. Why I say 10 out of 10? I don't know, I'm talking real fast and I need to slow down. I'm worried about the time. And I'm worried about the time. See, there I go. Kind of being mistracked. I'm worried about the time on my phone, which is 24 minutes it's been, and the time, not the time, but the percentage. Now, alright. Okay, got myself, I guess you could say centered, but give me 1 second. I think I need to drink something right there. Sorry about that. Use of Yu-Gi's monsters. Explain I explained Yugi's deck, Jaden's deck, Yusei's deck. Yusei had the warrior archetype and the synchron archetype. The synchrons were mainly his tuners, and it's all from the 5D's anime. With all this, I'm not talking about the manga, because the manga is a different deck and a different story. I've been solely talking about the anime, by the way, of Arc V and all the other shows that I'm talking about, all the other series that I'm talking about. Yusei had the junk archetype, which were in his synchros, and a bit in his monsters. Doppel Warrior it does not count towards that because his name isn't spaced; it's actually together. Doppel Warrior, not Doppel Space Warrior. But he had the Warriors as an archetype in his extra deck and a bit of in his main deck. But I don't think those Warriors count as the archetype. But he did have cards that follow that same thing of Warrior in them, like Rescue Warrior. But he also had the Synchron monsters, which were tuners. He also had some support cards for the Synchrons, and then, then his Spawn Trap cards were for his Synchros, and then his other monsters, of course. He didn't have, he had a bit of support for his Stardust, but it was basically a support for Stardust, but it wasn't really archetype. The archetype of Synchron and the archetype of Warriors. And then he also had a bit of cards for Junk, too, in there. Maybe this is his manga deck in there as well. I'm not too sure, but he was rolling with some archetypes that were aiding him for his synchros. And like I said, it wasn't just Stardust, it was more. But in Zill, though, going to Yuma's deck, and no longer Yusei's deck, in Yuma's deck, it's a bit more unified, I guess you could say. You get all these different archetypes that can spam out a rank 6. I was going to say 7. I just messed that up. I meant to say rank 4. Thought 7, meant to say 4, and then I said 6. Just to summon out numbers 39, right? That's the number. Is that his number? Yeah. Numbers 39, Hope, the King of Wishes, or Utopia. Now, the reason why I went on that long rant saying that stuff is to get to Yuya's deck. But I'm going to talk about Yuma's deck, because Yuma's deck was a bunch of different archetypes. They all summoned out, helped Yuma summon out a rank 4 monster, which was Hope. And then his other cards were to help Hope, and then Hope evolve into his other forms that would take down his opponents. And then he had Spell Trap cards to help Hope, and the monster you always saw him with was Hope. And then if something got out of hand, he would be like Rainbow Karibo, and then, Then we get to the Age of Pendulum. I don't know why I brought up my Ritual Monster, because I don't need this. Then we get to the Age of Pendulum. Now, in the Age of Pendulum, Yuma's deck is what I'm talking about here. Yuya's deck is supposed to be about entertainment, right? That was the whole theme. He has his intermates, or his performer pals, which I don't know the difference between the OCG and TCG names, because I don't really. I think it's performer pal, or what was it called? His animal creatures, right? And that itself is also a bit of a clusterfuck, I guess you could say, because he had not only the animals, the performer, whatever animals, which makes sense because he's an entertainment duelist, but he also had the magicians, and this goes to well, you see what I'm getting at. Throughout the show, it was kind of like an imbalance. How do I say this? I feel like Yuya had such an imbalanced deck, what should have been the most balanced, the most balanced deck out of all the protagonists, since it was in the age of consistency that it was in. It was so unbalanced, I guess I want to say. It was so weird. When he won with Odd Eyes, I feel like he didn't win with Odd Eyes. You know what I mean? Because he would use the effect of Silver Claw, whatever. I think that's the name of that monster, the wolf monster. He would use the effect of that monster, and then he would pull off a win. I don't know if I should say pull off, but he basically won the duel, right? Which is fine and dandy, but I find that a bit weird. Not a bit weird, but the fact that you saw so many different form of powers, and then you saw not that many magicians, though, kind of throws the balance, because he's supposed to be an entertainment duelist, right? And when you think entertainment, you think clowns, of course, but don't you also think magicians? I don't mean something like Yugi's magician, the Dark Magician, which is, about witchcraft and all that stuff. I mean magician as in, this ball's gone, now it's over there at the corner of the room. That type of magician, entertainment magician, would have been perfect for Yuya. And that type of deck he could have used. He still could have had a dragon if he wanted to. Actually, now thinking about it, Zark's story should have been about the 1, 2, 3, 4. Should have been about the 4 magicians. It shouldn't have been. This is a new thought, by the way. It should have not been about the 4 dragons. It should have been about the 4 magicians, don't you think? Since magicians usually have, since they spell and channel all that stuff, it should have been about these 4 magicians. Listen, it should have been about this dude who had these 4 magicians, and he combined himself with all 4 of his magicians to create the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. Becoming the Dark Magician. Mind blown. No. But he should have formed himself with all 4 of his magicians. Because it would make sense a little bit more better than 4 dragons. Of course, they kind of explain it that the sorcerer, the time-bending sorcerer, it makes sense, though, when you see it, though, because Zark says to the sorcerer to help him, to fuse him with his dragons. Which makes sense, but as you can see, even the writers are like, well, the magician's going to help him become that. I feel like the story could have been about entertaining, and it should have been about the magicians. How do I say this? It should have been about magicians, because when you think entertainment, you think about magicians. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, but that's not where that card goes. But that's how I kind of see it. Should have been about that. I do think he could have kept his perform pounds, but I think the management should have been a bit more better. Have him have a little bit of a consistency. Since he didn't focus on XC or Synchro or anything like that, since his main Ace monster came from the main deck like Yugi did, all his cards should have just been Odd Eyes cards. If they're not going to focus on the Magician part, they should just focus purely on the Odd Eyes part. Maybe have Odd Eyes Magician, that makes sense. The Perform Pals could have aided in searching or whatever, but make his main cards be Odd Eyes. But in this day and age of Yu-Gi-Oh, you could have just scrapped the whole Perform Pals and the whole Magicians out of there and just put Odd Eye monsters. It would make much more sense and be a little bit more consistent. Now, I never played the cards. I'm just doing this through a story standpoint. Yuto has... Actually, they all have one archetype each, except for Yuya. Yugo has Speedroids. Yuto has the Phantom Knights, or Phantom Knights. It's a really weird thing with that, but either way, Phantom Knights. Yuri has Predator plants, or the TCG, Predator plants, which sounds weird, but Predator plants. Yuya has Magician, Perform a Pal, and Odd Eyes. Or, I don't know what, Perform a Pal, whatever. He has that. That's just a little fun fact right there, though. But you could have just scrape both of those out and then just leave Odd Eyes, which would make sense. Okay, that's the Odd Eyes archetype, and what's the biggest monster that the Odd Eyes archetype has? The Odd Eyes Dragon. That makes sense. This is the end of part 1 because someone decided to call me.